What's up everyone, I hope you've been well. Anyways, today I wanted to show you guys how to make a Glaive type beat. Now there is one hiccup here, which is that I'm not a particularly great guitarist, nor am I equipped with the gear to record guitar, but that guitar sound is such an important element of Glaive's beats, so we're going to flip some guitar samples in this video to get that same vibe. Huge shout out to Josh Crespo for sending over the loop we're going to be using in this video. Now, before we jump in and start making some fire, please do me a favor and like this video. It helps spread this video out to more producers, and the more producers that see this, the more watch hours I get, and the more watch hours I get, the more this channel is monetized, and the more this channel is monetized, the less existential angst I have, and the less existential angst I have, the more videos I can make for you. Okay, I think you get the point. There might have been a couple extra steps there, but y'all are for real angels. Now please do me a favor and smash that subscribe button, because the more people who subscribe... Oh, okay, you get the idea. Now let's dive in.
Angel, don't play.
Okay, this should be a no-brainer, of course, but the first thing we had to do was bring in the loop from the man himself, Josh Crespo, and this loop was already in 160 BPM, which is actually the BPM of a lot of Glaive songs like Astrid, so it was the perfect BPM. But honestly, I went through like half this beat making process thinking that the G flat this was in was a G flat minor, meaning that it was an A major, and G flat does not equal G flat minor, does not equal A major, and so that actually created a lot of problems throughout making this beat, but eventually I caught it, so we'll catch up to that. But either way, this loop is awesome, and I had a ton of fun cooking with this. So the first thing I did with this loop was put it in double time, and I actually did this with stretch mode in the playlist window, but I would really recommend doing it with a multiplication knob. I wish I had done that in the first place, it would have made it easier, but I did it from the playlist, and you can basically do it however you want, but basically having that fast, sped up guitar sound is just a very cool sound, especially for this style of music. The next thing I did was route the guitar to channel 1 of the mixer and open Fruity Parametric EQ2 to roll out some of the lows. There isn't a whole lot of harmonic action going on in that frequency range anyways, and it's just going to give us more room to play with the bass and kick on this track, which we'll have a ton of fun with around the drop. Next, I opened up another instance of EQ to bring out some of the better frequencies in this track, and also bring out some of that boomier low mid where we're really going to hear more of the vocals. I also have this fruity limiter here turned to compress mode, so as you can see, the first thing I'm doing here is turning down the threshold so that way we can tame some of those peaks in the sound. Then we're just turning up the ratio here to basically, do some gain reduction and bring those peaks down. I bring up the attack a little bit so we can hear more of the actual pluck transient of the guitar, but not a whole lot. And I just want to have a more fluid sound, so we have a lot of release and sustain. Next, I loaded in hardcore. I really would have preferred to use guitar rig, but since this is a stock plugins tutorial, I used hardcore, and to get a good tone out of this, I really just went mild on all the settings and swapped the distortion unit for the tube drive unit. Okay, so this is really a top tier hack. We loaded in Fruity Convolver Reverb, and this plugin actually has guitar cabinet presets. Geology put me onto this, and basically this is going to give you a very authentic sound like your guitar is coming from a guitar cabinet, because what this does is it basically samples the shape of the reverb that a guitar cabinet would create and then loads it onto this sample. So we get a really unique sound out of this, and I just flipped through a few of them to find the one that would work best. So I started off the drums with the .com kick and net worth snare from my Fortune 50 kit, and basically just went about creating a kind of pop punk type beat. It's really not that difficult. It's just basically snares on every downbeat, a simple ride pattern, and then the kick just is doing some like crazy stuff, but that's, how you make a punk beat like that. I also opened up the sampler and basically just made more of the volume come from the boost knob as opposed to the actual gain knob, just to make it angrier. So overall, the drum mix is pretty simple. I put a soft clipper on the kick drum. I did some basic EQ on the kick to pull out a lot of space in the mids for the vocals, but where it gets a little stranger is I actually rolled off up to about 50 hertz of the lows because I knew I was going to want to make that drop insane on the bass. On the snare, I started just by rolling out the lows, and then I added another snare to really add more air to the sound, bring out some space for the guitars by cutting out the high mids, and then adding a lot of body in the low mids. A little bit of EQ can make it so much more present, and of course we had to add the fat reverb. Next, I routed all of the drum channels to a group drum channel. If you're not familiar with this technique, it basically allows us to process all the drums together and create a more glued sound. I started with Fruity Fastest, very mild settings to help give it that kind of post SoundCloud aesthetic. Same thing with the compressor, very mild settings, but it keeps all the drums glued together. I also made this percussion loop, and I'm not even joking when I say I literally just dropped random stuff in random places to make this loop and then threw Love Filter on it, and that's where all those like cool kind of sweepy sounds that you hear in the percussion of this track come from. So up until this point, it was really a smooth, easy process getting that whole guitar and drum rhythm sorted out. But the thing is that there's actually about 2 hours of footage here that I'm just straight up cutting out of this video because I could not figure out how to make this drop. It took me like 3 days to make this drop. So the only way that I'm going to actually just cut out that, hours of my life that I spent making drops that didn't work for this track is if you like this video. So make sure to like this video. That way you don't have to see hours and hours of me not being able to get the drop to sound right. Fair? Awesome. So what I really wanted to do with this drop was make it just crazy loud while still leaving a ton of room for vocals. So the build-in is very simple. It just gets silent, there's a whistle effect, and then the drop hits hard. So this hi-hat pattern is extremely simple. I mean, it looks a little complex. There's that little pitch roll at the end, but basically it's a super simple hi-hat with the rattle hat from my Spooky Everything kit. What's really the defining feature of this beat is the 808, and I used Geology's Astrid 808 from his Cooked as F kit, and honestly, this 808 was a lifesaver because the 808 I was using originally was not it, but since this is a Glaive beat, the Astrid 808 was perfect, and we've just got a simple kick layered on it. So yeah, that's basically how this kick and 808 pattern works, and a lot of the magic's really happening in the mixer, so I'll show you that in a second. Also, if you're wondering how I chose the notes for this 808, I'm basically just playing in key, right? So I turned on the scale highlighting and put it in A major, and we're basically just, playing the root note in 2 octaves and the dominant note and throwing in a bunch of slides and stuff, and that's really all the 808 pattern is. Also, the most complicated part of this beat is for sure the snare. Yeah, it hits right there. Again, a lot of the magic is really happening in the mix. Just juice this snare like crazy, added on a ton of reverb so it just smacks you in the face the whole drop. If you're wondering what all these random audio files are here, it's a chord progression that I spent about an hour on that didn't even make it into the final cut. It's totally muted and it's not even relevant. Pretend it's not there. I wish it wasn't. Finally, to round it out, we have the Chris Kim Jong-un crash from Geology, and I don't know how to pronounce it, but yeah, that thing is hard, and it's just hitting like every couple bars throughout the whole drop. Now let's take a look at the mixer, because honestly, this is where all the magic is happening. So if we look at the 808 here, I've got a soft clipper on it, and basically just default settings on there. We have Fruity Fastest, and we're slamming this thing hard. B setting, as always, that's the only setting you ever use on fastest, and yeah, just juiced it. We've got Fruity Flange, and I think this is actually the Disto Chorus preset, and I didn't really change anything, it's just the Disto Chorus preset. And then we have a really expensive, and I know it's supposed to be a stock VST tutorial, but yeah, we've got CamerCrusher with the Annihilate preset. By the way, this is actually a free plugin, so I highly recommend that you go download this if you haven't. I know it's supposed to be stock plugins only, but I had to use CamerCrusher. It was necessary. Also, this plugin is really cool because it's actually made by Camel Audio, which is the company that Apple purchased to make Logic Pro X. So basically, like, this is just a legendary plugin that every producer should be using. Most of the sounds in the drop are also being routed to an instance of Fruity Convolver reverb, and it's the Montclair Church A FAR preset that I used, and just make sure that it's all the way wet and just send a bit of the signal of a lot of the different sounds to hear. That just helps make the mix a lot wider and more spacious, and it gives it that big, epic, wide, huge feel that we want out of a Glaive drop. Now the guitar mix is everything on this drop. It's the same exact guitar, just with different settings. So, we just hit the hardcore really hard and pulled out all the effects. We've got gross beat, and it's actually gating like half the time. So you can see we've got that 2-bar gate, and then we've just got like a basic pattern on there to give it some weird stutter, gross beat type effects. And then just made it really loud. Like, I had to throw on Fruity Bounce and move the fader all the way up just to make it loud enough, and then threw some reverb on it. And that's basically the drop. The other sounds in here don't really have any effects other than maybe a little bit of reverb. And yeah, these are also the settings for the Bing Bong percussion loop, and that actually doesn't hit during the drop. I just wanted to say Bing Bong again, so yeah. that was the drop, and it was a ton of fun to make, so I hope you enjoy it. So that's how to quickly make a Glaive type beat using only FL Studio stock plugins. We did of course use a guitar sample, but that's one reason why it's so important to network with other producers. And to help you do that, I want to invite you to join my Discord server, Avatar Squad. You can join at squad.andrewtheavatar.com. It takes a few minutes to load sometimes though, so click the link down in the description to get there as fast as possible. And inside of the Discord server, you'll be able to connect with tons of producers and artists. I also regularly give away free loops in there, so it's worth joining and it's totally free. The link is also in the description. I'll see you there. Anyways guys, let me know down in the comments what you want to see next. I love you more than words can express, and I'll see you next time.